All right, folks, we're actually back with another edition of the Red and White Podcast. We apologize for the long break. We tend to do this during basketball season because I feel like we repeat ourselves a lot. But this time we had personal things in the way, and life just gets in the way sometimes. But we're back. We didn't give up on it, and we appreciate everybody's patience in listening. Here I'm Evan, joined as always with my co-host Dustin. How you doing, brother?
Good, I guess.
Well, if we were more prepared, we probably should have been having kept notes over the last few weeks. It's been an interesting few weeks in NC State land. We'll start with football, just to touch on it. The NFL Combine, and Nyheim Hines killed it with his 40 time, and Jalen Samuels is moving up the draft boards, and I think I see him now on day one. So he's in the either round 2, round 3, which is kind of wild. I didn't actually expect that. I was curious where he's going to go. And who's the other one? Bradley Chubb. Sorry, he's all over the place. People are saying he could be a top pick, or he's definitely going in the top 3. But it's going to be interesting, man. It's a Wolfpack heavy draft, and I think if I read the story right, if I remember, NC State was second among. They give out medals for like performances based on the combine, and Penn State won because Saquon Barkley pretty much won everything. But NC State was tied for second with the amount of medals won, and it just speaks volumes for what D'Antonio Burnett is doing with the conditioning program. That's amazing that we're up there with Ohio State and some of the big programs. So I don't know. That was interesting to watch. I can't wait for the draft. I think it's going to be fun for us.
Yeah, I can't really add a lot of input to the NFL draft because I'll be honest, I have been busy and haven't paid much attention to it, the combine stuff. But I consistently see Chubb going, I think, third to the Colts? Yeah. The majority of them have him going there. Hopefully, for his sake, he doesn't go number 1 because nobody needs to go to Cleveland ever.
Cleveland's making moves in the free agent market, though.
They are. I don't know how it'll pan out, and I'm sure they'll screw it up. I hope they don't, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to go there. I'd love to be the number 1 pick, but not if it's Cleveland's. So,
would you take Barkley?
I feel like the market's changing. I feel like you can get good running backs a lot easier than you could in the past. Right. I don't know that I put the number 1 pick on him, but at the same time, does he have those traits that could make him that once in every couple of decade player? Yeah, he does. So that's interesting. If he goes to Cleveland, I think they'll destroy him. They'll ride him, and yeah, they will ride him so hard. Who was that dude they had running back? Peyton Hillis, was that him?
Yeah, Peyton Hillis, right? He's concussion out of the league, right?
Yeah, did fantastic with the Browns, and then all of a sudden he was gone. So,
yeah,
I don't know, but they're putting some pieces around him. He could be a solid kind of finishing touch to that rebuild offense. It's on paper looks good. We'll see how it does on the field, though.
Yeah. So who knows? It's going to be a Cleveland Browns podcast. That's what happens when we don't have notes, people. We're just kind of winging it. Draft will be interesting. I think it's good exposure for the program, and we can kind of leave it at that. I think that's good. I will be remiss. I forgot to say happy Steak and Beejay Anya Day for everybody out there. Hopefully you're celebrating. And speaking of basketball, it's been an interesting few weeks, man. The Pack was on a roll for a while there, and then the Georgia Tech game, I felt like kind of derailed it, and I think it was I don't know, people were blaming the official for that game, and it was poorly officiated, but the team just got out of sorts there. And I feel like that carried over a little bit into the Boston College game. And the one thing I noticed with those 2 losses, both of them, are when Torrin Dorn gets fouls early, it really throws the team kind of off for whatever reason. I think he's just that critical piece that, if he's in foul trouble and has to come in and out of the game and has to play cautious, I feel like it just throws everything off. So I think for us to be successful in this tournament, he's got to play smart and be aware of that. And, I don't want to say not get fouls. He's going to get fouls, but, not get 2 in the first 30 seconds or whatever it was against Boston College. How do you feel about the draw for the tournament?
Seton Hall is going to be tough.
Yeah.
Their front courts with a couple seniors, I think it's the front court. Like, I feel like if they can get past Seton Hall, they can give Kansas a game easy.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they would beat Kansas, but they'll play with Kansas. But that Seton Hall game is, we're underdogs for a reason. I think 2.5 was what it opened at, and I think it's kind of hanging around that. And you can usually tell when a line comes out, if it doesn't fluctuate much, then that's pretty good consensus that they think they're 2.5 better than us. So, we can get past that. We can make some noise, but that's tough.
The national media or national, I say, betting world probably puts a little more emphasis into the Seton Hall name. And I think that's just the volume comes out of the North the most. And everybody's like, oh, Seton Hall, they're living in the 80s, whatever. They're the basketball program. They're real good. And I don't know how much faith I place in the betting public on that one. It just seems to be a weird trend that you see. But they're good. They're a good team. It'll be an interesting. Anytime you have a senior-laden team, they're usually perform pretty well in the tournament. They get a challenge,
Well, everybody thinks the Big East is just all this, fantastic. But
yeah,
I think that could have something to do with it too. But they were third in their conference. They didn't win it or anything. They're a 9 seed for a reason, or an 8 seed. I'm sorry.
I'm a bit shocked. Xavier got
but they're going to give us a tough game. If Seton Hall wins and plays Kansas, I think Kansas whips them. We beat Seton Hall and play Kansas, it's a close game. And that's the kind of thing. But that's Seton. It's going to be tough for us, that first game, I think. And it goes back to, like you said, against Georgia Tech and Boston College. Dorn got into foul trouble early, but I don't know that it was just that affected the game plan or like sucked the life out of the team. And I didn't pay much attention to the Georgia Tech game from this aspect, but the Boston College game, the first half, we were missing shots like crazy, and they were all off the front of the rim.
Right.
I don't know why we were flat-footed. It's like Dorn shouldn't do that. He gets into foul trouble. We've at least got to put enough follow-through and shots for them to be normal shots. We can't handle everything just banging off the front of the rim and that being it. And we come out like that tomorrow, we're going to get smoked.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I might have tweeted this out that we, in that first half of that game, we missed a lot of shots. I wasn't necessarily paying attention to how they missed. I just noticed we missed it, and they made a lot. And that happened one other time this year, and I forgot which game it was, where the team played a really good first half. We played a really bad one. And, those things they're not sustainable. You rarely see a team put together 2 halves like that. And so you knew it was going to come back to earth. And it did. And, I give credit to the Pacs for getting it close and, tying the game after all of that. That shows a little bit of resiliency. Now, they didn't win, and there was, bad play out of bounds at the end of the game. All that shit happens, but it's not a huge to me, it's not a huge deal. The fact that they rallied, they didn't give up. We've seen teams in the past give up and just collapse and just let the other team run over them. And they didn't do that. They fought back. They played hard, and they whipped them in the second half. They just didn't put enough together in the first half. And I think that's I'm watching Wolfpack Hustle, the show they put out, and it's really well done. And one of the things Keats was emphasizing is, better start. You have to come out better. You have to learn from that game. You have to come out and play hard the whole time, no matter who your opponent is. So I'm hoping they take that as a learning lesson, and I think they will.
If you want to win in March, you have to rebound, and you can't go 15 points down in the first half.
Yeah,
that's you stick to those principles, and you got a good shot. it doesn't matter how good. And that second half against Boston College was probably the best half of state basketball we've played in 5-6 years. But when you set yourself up so badly in that first half, it doesn't really matter what you do in the second. I mean, if we had played half of the first half with half of that effort, we would have won that game by 10 points. So, March is not the time to dig holes. So.
Excuse me. That's exactly right. And I don't know. I think, excuse me, Jesus.
Let's take a timeout because Evan's dying.
Out.
So,
time out, coach. Oh, I've lost my train of thought now. I don't know. It wasn't the best performance and not the right time for it, but hopefully they use it as a kind of kick in the balls. What I was going to say is that, and this is kind of the question that a lot of people bring up, and what are your thoughts on the performance, overall, the season overall? Like, how did Coach Keats do in his first year?
I mean, I can't imagine anyone who had any expectations close to what we pulled off.
Yeah.
If you did, you were being extremely unrealistic. And we had played a couple of games when we last recorded. We were gone for a while, but we even talked about, this is kind of what you're going to get. You're going to get some wins that you shouldn't get, and you're going to lose some games that you shouldn't as well. And that trend kind of continued, but we won a lot more than we shouldn't have, as opposed to the loss aspect of it. I had one real thought. I don't remember. There were a couple of games left in the conference, and thinking back the past couple of years, how, before the past 2 years, Gottfried's teams would start out kind of slow, but then they would, heat up and finish strong, always get us to that bubble where we were seeing who we were in. And this kind of went like that, except the main difference was Gottfried, head coach at Cal State Northridge. His teams turned it on in the second half of the season, but I look at that as them getting hot.
Right.
Keats' team turned it on in the second half, but they didn't get hot. They got better.
Yeah. Like, you
could see them as a team getting better. And I think that's a big difference in the two from a teaching aspect and an overall leader of the program aspect. I'm effing stoked about the season and the future,
How do you feel about Coach Keats getting 2 votes for Coach of the Year?
I don't know what the media was exactly thinking when Virginia was picked 6th preseason, right, or why they weren't ranked. But that's the reason it happened that way. I think personally, I think we were the shittiest team out of the 3 contenders this year for Coach of the Year. When you look at last season, Tony Bennett had his guys coming back, guys used to his system. They did what they normally do. I think they've won the conference like 3 out of 5 years. I don't understand how this was some miraculous coaching job. To me, it wasn't. I think he should have finished 3rd, even though they won the conference. I think Brownell, did a tremendous job. But there again, he's an established coach there. He's got a system that's been in place. He's got guys that are used to him. So I would have had Keats 1st, Brownell 2nd, and Bennett 3rd, just because Keats came in with pretty much nothing. Couldn't even really run his system. It's like a hybrid of what we did before mixed with some of what he wants to do, and made it work much better than it should have with a ragamuffin team. I don't know how he didn't get more respect, but everybody was in love with Virginia. So
yeah, that was a leading question, because I knew you put out a tweet and it said basically that, and I was like, that's spot on. That we were the shittiest team. We were, picked.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to argue we could pick 12th or 13th or whatever it was. But yeah, it was a new coach, new system, new players. Everything about it was unknown. And to see this, the turnaround, to do things that, I hadn't done in a long time, beat Duke and then go to Chapel Hill and win. And then, sweep Wake Forest. I mean, that just doesn't happen. That hasn't happened consistently for us. And so, I'm with you. I think Brownell did a really good job, but again, he's had his guys coming back. He's been there for a while. I think if you look at the impact, the overall impact, I think Keats was a performer, and I think 2 votes is almost insulting to me.
Another way I would look at that, especially from the Brownell aspect, he's been there years now. If they had a horrible season, he could have been on the hot seat. You think?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
I mean, he doesn't really have an excuse. So he's got the guys. He should be expected to win. And he did. He did what he was supposed to do. Keats did far and above what he was supposed to do.
Brownell was on the hot seat. I think last year they were talking about, is Clemson going to fire him? I mean, I know they were. I mean, we were having this conversation there. Were they going to fire him to get Will Wade from VCU because he's, from South Carolina and all this stuff? And then they eventually came out and said, no, we support Brownell. It was some half-ass statement. So, I mean, he was definitely on the hot seat. Yeah.
So he was in a position where he was expected to win.
Right.
And he did. Keats was not expected to win. We couldn't have bitched if we won 5 games in the conference this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as far as Tony Bennett, I mean, I would never expect him to finish 6th in the ACC. Not with him having his guys back. And that's only because more was expected of other teams, not about him or his team. You knew you were going to get that same bullshit defense that never gets fouls called on it from his team that puts them in position to win every game. Now, I think they're far and above what even I would have expected them to be. I do think they should be the number 1 overall seed, that kind of thing. But I think Keats had to be there.
And I thought in particular Markell got shafted. And I guess he was honorable mention or whatever, but you lead the ACC in assists and you lead it in steals and you dominate those categories and you get honorable mention. I mean, I thought that was kind of shorthanded or I'm not sure what the right term is for it, but he got a raw deal there. I was pretty disappointed with that.
I agree. We had what? Who was on the 3rd team? That's it?
I don't know if Omir might have been.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, okay, so let's look at this. I pulled up the 1st, 2nd, 3rd honorable mention. So you look at Tony Bennett, who won Coach of the Year. He had a guy on 1st team. He had a guy on 2nd team. He had a guy on 3rd team. Clemson had a guy on 2nd team, and that's it.
Yeah.
State had a guy on 3rd team, and that was it. The lowest vote getter total.
Yep.
So who did more with less? I don't know. Bennett was bound to get it because the ACC has a history of giving it to the, conference winner. You can say, oh, well, Roy and Kay don't get it. No, but if any other team finishes first, that coach gets it because of the expectations of Duke and Carolina every year.
Yeah. I guess you're probably right. That's probably what plays into it. It's a consistent sign of, I don't know, disrespect or I just feel like being overlooked. And I know that kind of plays into our fan base and, I get it, but he got a raw deal. I mean, we finished 3rd for the ACC. You're 3rd in the ACC. I don't know how you could expect anything more or anything less than that. I mean, you finished ahead of the heels for God's sakes. And I just, I don't know. For the media perspective, who vote these things and just crapped on us all preseason, to then turn around and say, "Oh yeah, good job," but kind of glad-handedly glaze over it. I mean, it's just annoying from my standpoint, but I guess that's the way of being a State fan. Yeah. Tucker on Twitter asked, "Did we finish 5th or 3rd in the ACC?" I say there is no ties. I'm claiming 3rd, Tucker. I'm with you, man. You look at the numbers, and we're tied with them. You can rearrange them however you want. So, yeah, 3rd in the ACC. We'll scroll down. There's a couple more. Nate Franks. Am I dumb for not being afraid of anyone in the bracket while also understanding State could easily lose tomorrow? That's exactly what we said. I think Seton Hall is a much tougher matchup for us. Um, I don't think State plays as good as well as they can. They can compete with anybody. We've shown that all year. It's just a matter of, can you get that consistency, and can you get it for 5 games in a row or whatever it may be. I'm not sure. I hope so. I don't expect it to, and I think that's probably where everybody else should be. Should keep your expectations in line. And Charlie also along those lines. Charlie says, "It's sad I'm more confident playing Kansas than Seton Hall." And I think that's exactly what Dustin was just talking about. And, Seton Hall's is tough, and I think we'd play Kansas pretty tight, even though it's basically a home game for them.
I will say I've spent this whole time pretty much tooting Keats' horn. He's never won a tournament game as a head coach, has he?
I guess not. I guess they
no, and he's had one ACC tournament game and he lost it.
Yeah.
So we don't know what he does to get guys up for tournament type basketball. I'm not worried about that at all, but I'm trying to look for any kind of negative I can so I don't just come across as straight biased.
Right.
But I feel like we should be in a position where we can get a win. But if not, then it's like, I don't know. I can't say anything when we're the underdog, I guess.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know Keats' record outside of the 1 year at UNCW where they lost to Virginia, which, again, Virginia was the 1 seed. And actually, UNCW had them on the ropes and they couldn't close it out.
Yeah. I believe they played Duke close in a tournament game.
Yeah, possibly. I'm not sure.
I could be wrong about that. But I'm pretty sure he's played 2 I assume they were the 16 seed both times, but
yeah,
I don't know. He is a young coach, and this is big boy basketball now, and I think you get a grace period for that. But I think he's far exceeded anything we could have expected.
This year's been a wild success, and no matter what happens tomorrow or in a couple weeks, you wouldn't be able to tell me otherwise. Making the tournament is great. We've talked about, is that your metric for success? It's not mine. A lot of people use that and say, hey, look, he made the tournament. That's great. I'm happy he made the tournament, and I think that is a good metric. But for me, finishing third in the ACC and winning 11 ACC games, to me, that's a much bigger indication of success, and puts a lot more confidence in him from me. That when he was getting hired, he was probably my 3rd pick. I was not gonna lie, I like some other guys better, and that was just ignorance. But I can't be happier with the way they're playing, the results, the style of play, how he's handling it. Him as a representative for the program and all this stuff, man. I think it's been a drastic shift when you consider the previous years and what's coming to light now, and with NC State getting subpoenaed because of the Mark Gottfried error. I think Keats is a breath of fresh air in all this, in my opinion.
I agree. I was really shocked that Gottfried gets a job now, fresh off that news coming out. But him in LA is dangerous.
I am surprised he didn't get the East.
Guard.
Yeah, sorry, I'm surprised he didn't get the ECU job.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's built for the West Coast.
I would love to see him in Greenville, though.
I really wouldn't. I wouldn't want to recruit. He can recruit.
Well,
I don't want to deal with that.
He's paying people.
Well, that necessarily wasn't all him, but college sports is a money making business for a reason. So
yeah, I would in Greenville for the aimant aspect. I mean, it's like 80% female down there. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, well, I was talking to my buddy Rob, texted me, and he's like, dude, LA, that's like one short interstate ride to Vegas. And I'm like, oh God. I'm like, he's going to be the guy that takes off to Vegas and disappears in the desert, never to be heard from again. like mezcal and pregnancies. That's all I imagine in his future. So
Oh my god! You know what's gonna happen? I said this for a while that Gottfried was gonna replace Alford at UCLA.
I tweeted
They
that
gave.
last night.
Did you?
It has like got to UCLA. Like his master plan is in motion. He's in the
It
city
is
now.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's going to go to Cal State Northridge. He's going to crush it for 1 year. They're going to fire Alford because they can't do it this year because they can't afford it. And so they fire him next year after his success. And hey, look who's right down the road.
Yeah.
The guy you've always wanted.
We don't have to pay relocation. None of that shit. It's meant to
Yeah.
be. He's working the long con. So
He is working. He is working the long con. That's the perfect way to put it. Yeah, it's interesting though. I mean, I think that's what's going to happen. I can see it. Give us a year, come back at us. Coach God is in LA.
So
What else we got here? I don't know. Who you feeling in the tournament? Outside of us, obviously.
I mean, you just want to like bust our wad and announce our champion, or go through like a Final Four or Sweet 16 or what?
Give me your Elite Eight, maybe. How about that?
All right, I've got in the South UVA, and I'm gonna take shit over this being a homer pick, but I've got UVA in Tennessee. West, I've got Gonzaga and Carolina.
All right.
East, I have Nova and Texas Tech. And the Midwest, Kansas and Michigan State. Sorry, NC State fans.
Oh. I've got Arizona, Cincinnati. And Dustin and I were talking before we started recording. I have Virginia. I keep flopping between Virginia and Arizona. Virginia's always let you down in the tournament, but this year feels a little different. But I hadn't made that change yet. So right now I got Arizona versus Cincinnati. And I'll be honest, I wasn't confident with the Cincinnati pick over Tennessee, but it was just kind of crapshoot. So I went with the higher seed.
I got Kentucky beating Arizona. No Sweet 16, man.
Yeah, so that's the problem when you pick that upset or you pick them that far and they have a tough game in there. They have two tough games. I mean, I think that they could be they have the two toughest games of anybody. I think.
Yeah, that is a shitty 2-game stretch there.
Yeah.
You know, poor Calipari, he gets screwed every year. So
right. Yeah, I feel so bad for him.
Yeah.
The other down, what is this one? The West, I have Xavier, don't love, and Michigan. I don't love that, but I'm not picking the heels. It's just the way I am. Midwest, I have Michigan State, and I went with the homer pick and picked the Pack. If we can get past Seton Hall, it lines up all right for us, I think. And then Texas Tech and Villanova in the East. Purdue might be the best team in the East, but I don't know. They've been up and down lately, and I'm just not I'm not big on it, you know?
Yeah, I don't like Purdue at all.
Yeah. The one game I wasn't sure about, and this is funny because this was considered one of our bad losses, is Greensboro, number 13 versus number 4 Gonzaga. I think if Greensboro if they can win that game, and I think Gonzaga is definitely a better team, but if they can win that game, they can make it to. I mean, they can make it to the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight. They would come into Xavier, but that's a long way to go for Greensboro. But we've seen it happen before. If I'm going to pick anybody who's got a upset road, they're a pretty good team. I'd give them a shot.
Touching on that, Wes Miller's the next coach of Carolina, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got to be, right?
Yeah. I can't see any way around it.
It's almost to the point where he's not going to take another job right now unless he knows what Roy's plans are. If Roy's staying another 5 years, Wes Miller might take another job. If Roy's like, yeah, I'm gonna dip it another year or two, and he's getting old, I could see Wes Miller staying at Greensboro and just waiting to move down the road.
What is it with what about Sean Miller? He really
Sean Miller,
screwed himself
right.
over there, didn't he?
His dream job. The Millers, Wes Miller versus
But
Sean
now
Miller for that job.
There's recorded calls. There's not recorded calls. Nobody really knows what's going on there. I love that, by the way.
So good.
But
that was the best.
We also need to touch on Indiana not even making the NIT.
Oh yeah, so let me get my Sean Miller rant in here real quick first. The Sean Miller thing, right? Everybody knows this is happening. Nobody expected the head coaches to get caught like just openly talking about it, right? That's just, you don't expect them to openly say on a phone call of all things, go pay this dude $100,000. He might get away with this and simply just because of semantics. Because if you listen to his press conference in Arizona's defense and then everything lines up, he's like, I did not say we should pay DeAndre Ayton $100,000. Now, that doesn't mean he hadn't said they didn't want to pay Lonzo Trier or any of these other guys $100,000. He just specifically said, I was not talking about paying DeAndre Ayton. He was talking about paying somebody. So why is it a big deal? Like, he was definitely trying to cheat, and he's just going to go away with it because they're harping on specifics. Well, timeline doesn't line up with Ayton's recruitment. It doesn't matter. Who was he talking about? He was talking about somebody. He gave somebody $100,000 to come to Arizona, whether they did or not. And I think it's comical at this point. They're just looking for a way to get around it because NCAA is not going to do anything. They've already shown to be inadequate. And so why not just fight them on these little things? So I don't blame them for their defense. I think it's pretty shitty, and everybody who says, well, he's not paying him. Well, he was talking about paying somebody. He was trying to cheat. He was trying to go around the rules here. There's no doubt about it. But he's going to get a pass just because of the semantics of the situation, and I think that's just ludicrous. I think it is hilarious that it's all happening to him, though, after all that shit that happened with his brother and him and Carolina job. And yeah,
I think he still has a shot at the Carolina job because all this, phone call stuff like that, to me, that's kind of sums up the Carolina way. So
yeah,
I think he's still, a good fit, but I think Wes Miller is a smart hire for them whenever the time comes, as long as he keeps Greensboro performing the way they are. So
yeah, that was also another reason I didn't want to pick Arizona, just because, one, they always seem to lose. Sean Miller has a weight of losing in the Sweet 16, Elite 8. And I really just don't want to have to pull for him. So that just probably made my decision to put Virginia in the Final Four in that bracket. So thanks.
All right. So from Elite 8 to Final Four, and that, I guess we can just shorten it up and I'll go through it all and then announce the where you need to put your money. I got Virginia beating Tennessee, much to my dismay.
Mm-hmm.
I have Carolina beating Gonzaga, much to my dismay. Villanova over Texas Tech and Michigan State over Kansas. And I have Virginia over Carolina to get to the final. Michigan State over Nova, and then I have Virginia winning it all over Michigan State. Write it down, guys.
Similar to mine, Virginia beating Cincinnati because I just knocked Arizona out. Xavier beating Michigan, probably my least confident bracket down there. I think that's Carolina's got the easiest road, but I am not putting them in there. I just will not do it. Michigan State over us, Texas Tech over Villanova, Nova, Virginia winning. The Virginia thing just feels like their year. They just feel like they've been able to sustain playing well all year and beating a lot of teams home and on the road. That's really my only reason. I don't have a lot of confidence in this bracket, to be honest.
No, I don't either. And looking at the Kansas deal, I will say that I'm worried about Seton Hall. If State can beat them and beat Kansas, I think they get to the Elite 8. Because I have Auburn over Clemson, and I think we can beat Auburn or Clemson if need be.
Yeah.
but I think all roads end at Michigan State in that regional. So,
And I always say that about Michigan State because I feel like Tom Izzo is a lock for the Elite Eight pretty much every year. The thing is, and somebody pointed out to me last night that Michigan State has only beaten 2 teams in this field this year. That's pretty wild, and I don't know what the correlation behind success is with that, but man, that seems to be pretty indicative. Like, you've only beaten 2 teams. I don't know how many teams were in.
I would blame more of that on the Big Ten as opposed to Michigan State. The Big Ten is trash. Kind of like football.
What's your favorite saying? Trans versus sports now.
It never ends, man. It never ends. I think the SEC was a better basketball conference than the Big Ten this year. I mean, you can tell from the 8 teams getting in. Mm-hmm. I just don't like the Big Ten. I do not. The South does sports better. So it's fact.
That might be my new favorite saying. The South does sports. The SEC, man, some of those teams have been kind of on a downward slide as of late, though. It'd be interesting to see how they see which conference holds up.
Yeah, I've seen though that Patino is trying his damnedest to get that Georgia job.
Yeah,
and if he gets that, then you look at the SEC East. You've got Cal at Kentucky, Rick Barnes at Tennessee, Patino potentially at Georgia. I don't know who Florida's coach is, but they're always good. I mean, they're building basketball kind of like the ACC built football up. So the Southeast is all of this area is what it's about, and only the Southern ACC teams, not Syracuse or Notre Dame. They don't even count. So,
I think there's a correlation to that too. I think they're riding off of the success of the other sports. I mean, the other being football and the other being basketball for, both of the conferences. And I think you're really seeing that elevate because both sports, the 2 leagues, have just been, I think, better than everybody else.
Yeah, they have. And that's weird to say. I've fought the ACC football fight for a long time, but it's weird to admit that SEC basketball is getting good, but it really is. So I've got some SEC teams going deeper than I'm sure a lot of people would, but I watched a lot of SEC basketball this year too. And you look at Kentucky, for example. Okay. Kentucky doesn't have their normal record, and everybody says, well, they came on strong at the end, and they did. And I think they're something to be worried about for Virginia. But they come on strong at the end of every year. Previous years, they still dominate the SEC. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, look at Auburn. If Bruce Pearl doesn't get fired, then Auburn's going to be good for years to come. I think you're right with the connection between the sports. Mm-hmm. The programs feed off each other.
They absolutely do.
The athletic departments are run correctly. And when you have, especially the money that football brings in, that just helps recruiting in basketball too. So
yeah,
that's why you see so many programs that are successful across the board in all those sports, because if you're good in one and you use that money the right way, you're good in the others, and that just brings in more money.
Right.
So, then there again, State seems to be getting better. And I don't know. The last I saw, we were 7th in the Directors' Cup.
Unbelievable. So, that was unbelievable turnaround. That one should have been in our notes as well if we were prepared at all. That Debbie Yow set out a goal when she got hired to be top 25 in the Directors' Cup, or top 10. I mean, that's unbelievable. Women's basketball is a 4 seed in the tournament. The secondary sports are killing it. I mean, just success on the athletic department has just been through the roof. And there's still people out there that question her leadership, and that's just ridiculous. I mean, just look at how well everything is performing. And, I don't know. I'm so glad to have competent leadership for once in my lifetime. I swear it's the first time. And it's amazing.
She's no Lee Fowler, but she'll do.
I mean, whoever put that guy in charge should just get, I don't know, put out to pasture or something. It just, that whole 20 years of leadership was just so bad. It's just so bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to not derail into that tangent, but I'm happy to have her, and the performance of the athletic departments is fantastic. And, I think all our programs are elevating, and, we're seeing even basketball success in 1 year that we hadn't seen. We've seen maybe 2 other times. I think we've won 11 games in the last 20 years. 11 ACC games. 2 other times. That's amazing. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, digressing. I don't think we have any more questions. I don't know if I have anything else. How about you?
No, not really. I will say, talking about Debbie, and she's closing in on the end of her career, talking retirement soon. I remember for a while people were talking about a possible heir apparent in Jeff Comfort at ECU. What a freaking downward spiral his career trajectory has been. I mean, he has killed ECU. So luckily that didn't happen sooner.
That was the best thing that happened to us, by proxy, that didn't happen. I mean, his decision making down there has just been awful.
Yeah,
and
so
he paid for it. He paid for it fast. Yeah.
So there again, count your blessings. Be happy with what we got. Be glad we're not ECU, and be glad that ECU is as bad as they are right now. So, in everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's all I got.
All right, folks. We got a bracket pool. If you want to in, $20, reach out and I'll give you the info. Last year it was over 1,000. We're a little behind that this year. I don't think there's going to be that many players. And watching the games, anybody needs a place, holler. And celebrate your steak and Beejay Anya Day. And we will talk to you guys soon, I promise. Go Pack.
Go Pack.